I had been with the company for over 8 years, climbing the ranks through hard work, late nights, and a commitment I thought unmatched. I knew the ins and outs of the business, the quirks of our clients, and the exact way the founder ran operations. For me, this company was more than a job. It was a part of my identity, my pride, my livelihood. That Monday morning, I walked into the office with a strange sense of anticipation. Rumors had been swirling all week. The founder's son, Jason, was returning from abroad and taking a more active role in the company. Everyone whispered about what that could mean. I thought little of it. I had faced difficult managers before, and experience had taught me that confidence, competence, and patience usually carried the day. By 10 a.m., the rumors were confirmed. Jason strode into the office wearing an expensive suit, sunglasses perched casually on his head, and an air of arrogance that made the entire room shift uncomfortably. He called an emergency meeting in the main conference room, and all employees were summoned. As I took my seat, I noticed his entourage, people who clearly admired him or perhaps feared him, lining the room. Jason cleared his throat, and the room fell silent. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, voice loud and commanding, "I'm sure you've all heard the news. I am officially taking over as the head of operations. I'm the boss now." The statement hung in the air, and murmurs erupted. Some employees exchanged nervous glances. Others muttered under their breath. I stayed calm, though a small flicker of unease crept into my chest. Jason had never run this company. He had studied it, sure, but he hadn't built it. I had. He paced in front of us, arms folded, clearly enjoying the attention. "I have fresh ideas, a new vision, and I intend to make sweeping changes. I don't have time for inefficiency or old habits that slow progress. That includes outdated management and complacency." I felt my stomach tighten. Old habits. I muttered under my breath. I had been responsible for keeping things running smoothly for years, often correcting mistakes that others didn't even notice. Jason's gaze suddenly locked onto me. For a heartbeat, the room seemed to shrink. "And that brings me to the first change," he said, voice sharp, almost cruel. "Effective immediately. Some positions will be restructured. And sadly, not everyone will be staying on." My heart skipped a beat. I looked around, hoping for some sort of context or clarification. But Jason wasn't done. He walked right up to me, the entire room watching, and said, "Your position is no longer required. You are terminated, effective immediately." The room went silent. My mouth opened, closed, opened again. I wanted to scream, to protest, to remind him of my years of dedication, but the words lodged in my throat. Jason didn't wait for a reaction. He turned, dismissing me with a wave of his hand. "Please pack up your things and leave," he said, almost casually, as if he were brushing off a minor inconvenience. I felt my face flush, anger and disbelief mixing into a hot knot in my chest. How could this happen? How could he, after minutes of being in charge, make this decision in front of everyone? My mind raced through memories of loyalty, late nights, client crises, and projects saved from disaster. Was none of it worth anything? Some coworkers looked sympathetic, offering quiet glances, while others avoided eye contact entirely, afraid of drawing Jason's wrath. I grabbed my bag and began to collect my belongings from my desk, every movement heavy with humiliation and shock. As I packed, Jason continued to talk about his plans, oblivious to the storm he had created. He outlined new strategies, new hires, and new rules. I could barely hear him. All I could focus on was the crushing weight of betrayal and injustice. I stopped for a moment, holding a framed photo of our team from last year's company retreat. I had framed it because that team had been my family for years. And now that family was being torn apart, at least in part because of someone who thought power came from arrogance and entitlement rather than experience and respect. I slipped the photo into my bag, ignoring the curious glances from coworkers. As I walked toward the elevator, I felt a strange mix of emotions: anger, humiliation, disbelief, and a quiet, simmering determination. I realized that Jason may have won this battle, but he hadn't won the war. Years of experience, networks, and a reputation built on competence couldn't be erased by a single outburst of nepotistic arrogance. Once outside the building, I breathed deeply, letting the cold air fill my lungs. My legs trembled, and for a moment I felt utterly lost. But then slowly clarity returned. This wasn't the end, it was a wake-up call. I had given my heart and soul to a company that valued pedigree over skill, titles over loyalty. Perhaps it was time to reclaim my worth elsewhere, to build something where respect and dedication were rewarded, not dismissed. That evening, as I sat in my car, I scrolled through my phone and found messages from colleagues who had witnessed the scene. Many expressed shock. Some quietly offered to stay in touch professionally. The support reminded me that, even in defeat, I wasn't alone. I had allies, friends, and a skill set that no impulsive announcement could take away. By the time I walked into my apartment, I felt a strange sense of liberation. The humiliation of being fired publicly still stung, but the fear of losing purpose had faded. I poured a glass of whiskey and raised it in a quiet toast to the future, to new beginnings, new opportunities, and to proving that competence and integrity always outlast arrogance. In the following weeks, I leveraged my network, updated my portfolio, and connected with industry leaders who recognized the value I brought. Offers began to come in, opportunities one hadn't imagined, while being consumed with loyalty to a company that ultimately betrayed me. And with each step forward, I realized that Jason's impulsive declaration of power and his public firing had given me something unexpected: freedom, perspective, and a renewed drive to succeed on my own terms. Looking back, I understood the lesson clearly. Power might come suddenly, and people might wield it recklessly, but true influence is earned over years, not inherited overnight. Jason may have had the title, the suit, and the bravado, but I had experience, integrity, and resilience, qualities that no abrupt announcement could take away. And as I stepped into my new role at a company that valued my skills and respected my expertise, I smiled quietly. That day of public humiliation had been one of the most important turning points of my career. Sometimes being fired isn't an ending. It's the beginning of proving your true worth.